Rain moved over the broken landing field like a gray veil. The stones held the memory of fire and thunder, and a single print in the mud waited beside the cracked beacon. A place where the human once stood, a place the alien fox girl returned to again and again. She was called Leary by her clan, her ears long and soft in the rain, her tail wrapped around her waist for warmth, her eyes bright as river glass, her steps light and careful. She walked with a little limp from an old fall, but her gaze did not waver from the empty sky, for the sky was a door and she was a watcher. Months earlier, a shuttle fell in smoke beyond the dunes and a human crew crawled from the wreck. They were tired and hungry and afraid. They were strangers under twin moons. They spoke in quick radio words and soft field voices, and they built a little camp from canvas, and scrapone of them was a woman named Claire. She had quick hands, a soft laugh, and strong shoulders. She gave her jacket to a shivering pilot. She set splints for a bruised leg. She drew maps by charcoal in the sand. She treated everyone with the same bright kindness, and Leary saw her and felt the world tilt. Claire met Leary at the river rocks, a place where the algae made green threads and the water hummed against basalt ribs. Leary brought water fruit and a spool of fiber. Claire brought a coil stove and a tin of sweet beans. They traded. They talked in slow words and slow gestures. They smiled at mistakes. They learned names for wind and fire, and home Claire said the camp would leave when the distress call was answered. She promised to come back for a proper treaty and a longer visit. She touched the beacon with a flat palm and said, "This is where I will stand. This is where I will return." Leary nodded, and the promise became a warm ember under her ribs. Days turned. Supply drones came and lifted the crew. The last shuttle rose at dawn and cut a pale knife through the clouds. Claire stood at the beacon with a hand over her heart. She looked down at Leary and pressed a small metal token into her palm. It was a round disc with a carved star. Claire said, "Keep this for me. When I come back, I will ask for it." Leary closed her fingers. Her tail brushed Claire's wrist. Then the shuttle lifted, and silence grew tall after that day. Leary guarded the field. She mended the fence, she stacked stones, she kept the path neat. The clan said the humans would not return. The clan said promises drift like spider silk in storm wind. But Leary believed because belief is a house, and every morning she opened the door and walked inside. Storms carved the plain. Months passed. The star disk warmed under her fingers at night. She traced its edges when sleep would not come. She learned a new rhythm of work. She scavenged the old camp for screws and mesh and wire. She built a humming coil that chased beetles from the grain. Small inventions grew from memory, and each one carried the shape of Claire's hands. Not all humans were gentle. Raiders came in a lean ship with hungry eyes. They wanted ore and animals and labor. They dragged nets across the creek and cut down the glow trees. They chased the little ones for sport. Leary stood at the field gate with a staff. Fear knotted under her ribs, but she did not move aside. A woman named Megan stood among the raiders. Her shoulders heavy with armor plates, her eyes unreadable. She walked to the gate and looked at the token in Leary's hand. She asked in slow words, "Where did you get that star?" Leary told the story without tremble. Megan's mouth changed shape. Not quite a smile, not quite sorrow. She signaled the raiders to lower their guns. She said, "There is a rule on my crew. We do not break the oath of Claire." The raiders grumbled, but they left the creek alone later. Megan came back with a single crate of field tools and a small antenna. She said, "This is not a debt settled. This is respect." She set the antenna by the beacon and tuned it to a clear band. She told Leary to listen on the long nights, because sometimes duty runs late, but it still runs. The weeks after were full of work. Leary learned to solder and to splice. She climbed the beacon in the red hour and straightened the vane. She raised a ring of wind chimes that sang when the sky moved. She taught the clan how to brace roofs before big weather. She trained the young to follow tracks and to leave no sign. She did these things because hope is not only waiting, hope is work shaped like a bridge. One evening, a tremor shook the hills. A freighter broke in the upper sky. Burning pieces crossed the moons and fell into the eastern marsh. The clan wanted to run. Fear pulled at every thought, but Leary remembered Claire at the river rocks. She remembered steady hands and a soft laugh. She ran toward the marsh with a coil rope and a roll of mesh in. The reeds she found a human woman half sunk in mud. The woman was named Lauren, pilot by the tag on her sleeve. Her lips were blue, her leg was trapped. The water was cold as iron. Leary wrapped the mesh under the mud. She made a lever from driftwood and a broken strut. She counted aloud to keep rhythm. She pulled until her muscles shook. The leg came free with a dark suck of mud. Lauren gasped. Leary carried her to a hummock and wrapped her in a foil blanket. The pilot whispered thanks, her voice thin. She looked at the star disk and whispered, "Claire led me here." Leary felt that ember flare to a small sun. They made a sled from reeds and rods. The clan opened their doors. Fires burned and broth steamed. Lauren slept 3 days and woke with stories. She spoke of a relay crash, of a fleet detour, of a promise recorded in an old log and carried from ship to ship. Megan brought spare parts and a rough laugh. The village grew noisy with human and clan voices, threads crossing and knots holding still. The sky gave no answer from Claire. Some nights Leary climbed the beacon and looked out over water and grass. The antenna clicked. The wind chimes rang, and the moons wore thin halos like tired crowns. On the longest night of the cold season, when ice grains hissed against stone, Leary felt a break in the air like a breath held for too long. A shape came down through cloud, slow and careful, lights blinking in a pattern that matched the old maps in the sand. It was not a heavy ship, just a courier with long legs and a clean belly. It kissed the field and settled. The hatch opened, and a woman stepped down with a pack over one shoulder and a bandage on her wrist. The woman was Claire, older in the eyes, brighter in the smile. She walked to the beacon and put her hand where she had put it before. The same place, the same quiet. Leary could not move at first. The world leaned and then steadied. She walked forward in small steps, her ears twitching with every sound. Her tail tight around her waist, Claire bowed her head. She said in a soft voice that carried anyway that she was late and she knew it, that a detour turned into a duty, and a duty turned into a door she could not open for a long time, that she had not forgotten, that she had read the report of a raider crew who left a creek untouched because of her name, that she had wept in a maintenance bay when she heard about a pilot saved in the marsh by a girl with long ears, and a bright Gazaliri held out the star disk. It warmed both of their hands. Claire left her pack on the mud and took a breath. She told Leary that the fleet had changed, that a new path opened across the local arm, that they needed partners who could read water and wind, who could repair beacons and teach young ones to leave no sign. She said she would build a little office by the field. She said humans would come through in ones and twos. Never in crowds, they would trade fare and leave light. She asked if that could be a beginning. Leary did not speak. Because some promises are stronger without words, she walked to the gate and opened it wide. The clan stood at the path with baskets and tools and shy smiles. Megan leaned on a crate and gave a short nod. Lauren waved from a crutch by the cook fire. The chimes sang again as if the wind itself agreed. Claire turned to the place by the beacon where she had once stood. She saw a little hollow in the dirt, the print long softened by rain, and she put her boot there, her hand on the beacon, her face tilted to the moons. Leary stepped beside her and let one tear fall. Not of pain now, but of release. That last tear fell to the place where the human once stood, and it mixed with the new footprint, and the field held both together. Old promise and new step, past and future, and the night felt like a door finally opened. A door with warm light on both sides in the weeks that followed. The bridge of work grew into a road. A school shed rose from cane and panel, where Lauren showed children how to draw the sky with chalk lines and how to read a radio with careful ears. Megan taught a gentle kind of strength to the young hunters. Not the strength of taking, but the strength of holding back when a creek needs time to heal. Claire and Leary walked the fields in morning haze. They marked where grass grew thin, where beetles came thick. They set mirrors to feed solar batteries and put stones where wagon wheels should roll. They wrote a treaty on reed paper with charcoal, simple and clear, a promise shaped to fit human hands and fox hands together. Years later, travelers would pass the beacon and hear the chimes and stop for water. They would see a small mark on the metal pole, a star disk pressed there for a second each year. And they would hear a story in simple words. A story about a girl who waited and worked, about a human who returned, about a last tear that fell in the right place and how that tear did not mean an end. It meant the first clear note in a long, bright song.